Today in 1905, Albert Einstein submitted for publication a paper called On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies. Today, that paper is mainly known for its introduction of the theory of special relativity, an intellectual discovery so radical it completely shifted humanity's understanding of space and time. Most of us instinctively think of time as something that flows in a certain direction, at a consistent pace, right? 1 second per second. And that things can happen before, after, or at the same time as other things. Isaac Newton had this idea of space and time as a kind of a setting, a stage in which things could happen in the universe. They were sort of the background for everything else. With this idea of absolute time, you can imagine the universe as a block or a cube, right? And everything in the universe is inside this cube. And say you decide you want to press pause. The whole cube, every part of it, everything just stops. From one corner of the universe to the other, everything just frozen at the same time. An absolute now. Except Einstein's theory of special relativity tells us that there is no absolute now that is the same for everyone. What we call the present doesn't actually happen everywhere at once. There is no single now. Now is different in different places. I know, right? Basically, here's two things you need to know. Einstein figured out that space and time are not separate. Instead, they're part of the same continuum known as space-time. You can think of it as our universe having 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. So what Einstein is saying is that time is actually part of the stuff of the universe, and that this stuff, it's flexible, it can stretch and contract and do all sorts of other funky stuff. Like, for instance, ticking at different rates for different observers. Yeah, because the second thing you need to know is that events that occur at the same time for one observer can occur at different times for another. So if I see 2 things happening at the same time, you might see those same 2 things happening at different times. That's crazy, right? Take you and me. You're sitting over where you are, but I'm really far away, like, in the UK, or better yet, in another galaxy, because this only works over large distances. So let's sync up our watches, so we're sure that my now is the same as your now. If I start moving towards you, time will pass differently for each of us relative to the other. So my sense of now will start to be different from yours. What actually happens is, my now begins to cut through space-time at a different angle from yours, meaning that what I see as now, the present, will include stuff that to you is in the future. It's crazy, I know. Also, kinda hard to come to grips with. There's this great video about it by the string theorist Brian Greene, who describes it as, imagine the universe like a loaf of bread, and if we're stationary compared to one another, we both slice the loaf the same way, so we both end up on the same slice of bread, that is now for both of us. But once we start moving, each of us cuts the loaf at a different angle, so what's in the present for you could be in the future for me and vice versa, despite us both having synced our watches. It's mind-blowing. But what's crazier is the broader implications for time. Here's a quote from Einstein. Quote, "For us who are convinced physicists, the distinction between past, present and future is only an illusion, however persistent." End quote. Imagine you're on the 3rd floor of a building, and you look around and all you see is the 3rd floor, right? Because that's where you are. But the 2nd floor, the 4th, the 5th, all the other floors, they're there too. They exist at the same time. You just can't see them because you're in the 3rd floor. Just like all the other floors in the building, the past and the future are here even if you can't see them. This is also known as the block universe theory. I wrote an article about this for thegreateverything.com called How Time Really Works. And I've linked to it in the description, but you really should check it out because it's mind-bending stuff. This idea is something I find deeply comforting, the idea that past, present and future are all right here at the same time. Kurt Vonnegut in Slaughterhouse-5 puts it best. He talks about these aliens to whom every moment in time happens now. To them, quote, "When a person dies, he only appears to die. He is still very much in the past, so it is very silly for people to cry at his funeral. All moments, past, present and future, have always existed, always will exist."